Tonight's Newsmaker has what could be one of the most multi-dimensional jobs in the Piedmont.
Well, let's see. He's part construction superintendent, designer, marketing director, and travel coordinator, just to name a few, but he just narrows it down to two. Making sure the Piedmont Triad International Airport is both an air travel destination and a job creator. Kevin Baker is from Pittsburgh, has an engineering degree from Lehigh University, and despite working in aviation, he can't fly an aircraft.
Airports are basically small cities in themselves, and all of the things that come along with a small city exist here.
Not the least of which is economic development. Bringing more jobs to the airport is what brought Kevin Baker to Greensboro in the first place. In the late 1990s, he worked for the consulting company, helping the Piedmont Triad Airport persuade FedEx to build its package hub here.
It wasn't me writing this proposal. It was a group of 30 people. I just happened to be the guy who typed it all up at the end.
That proposal won, and Baker eventually became the airport's executive director. But then the economy collapsed, sending documents via email did a number on overnight package delivery, and a FedEx hub everyone thought would generate 1,500 jobs now only employs several hundred. Does it disappoint you that FedEx Express and its terminal out here didn't bud into what you may have originally thought it would have been?
No, I wouldn't use the term disappointed. I think they're a jewel to have here on the airport. I think that the fact that FedEx is here led to other businesses locating here, such as Honda, excuse me.
In fact, FedEx, HondaJet, Timco, and more than 45 other companies at the airport help pump more than $1 billion into the local economy and employ about 4,500 people. Those numbers should grow even larger once the airport builds a taxiway from its newest runway across what is now Bryan Boulevard and eventually Interstate 73 to some 600 acres of land the airport owns on the other side.
We've done actually a good amount of preliminary engineering work on that site now and advanced it so that when the next user comes along, we're ready to go.
But again, much like a city, customer service or looking after the traveling public is equally as important. The airport terminal is in the middle of a $9 million upgrade. We're talking mobile device charging stations in the seats and a new ticket counter look, including large screen televisions.
It makes it very easy for us to even, if we want to change an airline's position, if they want to move to a different location, different ticket counter, all it is changing the TV.
Right, where before you had the big logos up there in fluorescent.
You had to physically move a sign.
Neon, excuse me, yeah.
Yes, and the neon's gone. I'm anti-neon.
Next up, removing the terminal's metal slat ceiling, exposing the 8 feet of space above to make the area feel more open. What's the most common complaint you hear?
Probably the biggest complaint is, why don't we have Starbucks?
Really?
Yes.
You got to be kidding me.
I mean, other than fares and frequency of airlines, that's probably the biggest complaint that I hear.
Okay, why don't you have a Starbucks?
Well, in order to have Starbucks, you have to be contracted with one particular concessionaire.
And the airport doesn't have a contract with that company. But you heard him mention complaints about fares and frequency of airline flights. That all goes back to the stiff competition PTI faces from the bigger Charlotte and Raleigh airports. PTI has tried over the years to offset that by recruiting lower-cost carriers. Allegiant and Frontier are here now. Others haven't been as successful.
But what happens in markets like ours is you get a carrier, a low-cost carrier that comes in, and then the legacy carriers, quote unquote, will match the fares.
Right.
And then folks who have frequent flyer cards on those other carriers go back to the other carriers, and the low-cost carrier loses them, and they exit the market.
So PTI tries to counter by targeting the low-cost carriers while at the same time trying to persuade the bigger legacy carriers to add flights. American, for instance, just added 3 flights to New York LaGuardia. For those who are really fare conscious, who would really like to fly out of this airport, what would be your recommendations to them?
First, check this airport. Don't assume that Charlotte or Raleigh are going to have better fares. And I think that if you look, you will find that in a number of markets, depending on time frames, obviously, we will have competitive fares.
So Baker recommends checking the airport's website for low fares. You'll find the link to it in this story on myfox8.com. As for Starbucks, and Katie's really interested in this, the contract with the current concessionaire will be renegotiated soon, so who knows what'll happen. And one thing you will see at the airport before the end of this year, construction of that new taxiway connecting the airfield to all that land on the other side of what is now Bryan Boulevard and the soon-to-be new Interstate 73. And by the way, PTI is now one of a handful of airports across the country that offer free Wi-Fi.